Have you ever wondered what happens to the spirits of those who pass away in a mental asylum? Behind these crumbling walls lies one of the most unsettling stories in our region's history. I am about to take you inside Blackwood State Hospital, an abandoned asylum where the boundary between the living and the dead seems impossibly thin. What you're about to see will challenge everything you thought you knew about the paranormal. I've spent months researching this place, and what I've discovered has left me questioning reality itself. Blackwood State Hospital opened its doors in 1923, promising to be a beacon of hope for those suffering from mental illness. The sprawling Gothic Revival building was state-of-the-art for its time, designed to house nearly 800 patients in what administrators called therapeutic surroundings. But hope quickly turned to horror. What were considered progressive treatments in the 1920s would shock us today. Hydrotherapy involved submerging patients in ice-cold baths for hours. Insulin shock therapy deliberately induced comas. And then there was the lobotomy ward, where over 400 procedures were performed between 1945 and 1967. The mortality rate at Blackwood was staggering. In 1952 alone, 127 patients died within these walls. Many were buried in unmarked graves in the hospital cemetery, their families never notified. But it was the winter of 1954 that would forever stain this place with tragedy. A fire broke out in the women's ward during the night shift. 23 patients perished, not from the flames, but from smoke inhalation trapped in rooms that had been locked from the outside. The official report blamed faulty wiring, but surviving staff members whispered of something far more sinister. Blackwood State Hospital closed its doors in 1987, but according to locals, not everyone left. Within months of the closure, reports began flooding in reports that would make this one of the most documented haunted locations in the country. Margaret Chen, the first incident I documented, was from a security guard in 1988. He reported hearing screaming coming from the third floor, the old Women-Ease ward, where the fire happened. When he investigated, he found nothing but empty rooms. But the temperature had dropped 30 degrees, and there were wet footprints leading down the hallway. Margaret has collected over 200 witness accounts spanning 3 decades. The stories are remarkably consistent. Margaret Chen, people report seeing figures in hospital gowns walking the corridors. There's the sound of medical equipment running in rooms that haven't had electricity for decades. And then there's room 237, the old shock therapy room. Every single person who has entered that space reports the same thing, the overwhelming sensation of terror and the sound of someone crying. James Morrison. I worked security here for 2 years after it closed. I'm a skeptical man, was a skeptical man. But I saw things that, well, they changed me. One night, I was doing my rounds when every door on the second floor started opening and closing by itself. The sound echoed through the entire building like thunder. I called for backup, but by the time they arrived, everything had stopped. Except for one thing, every single door was now standing wide open. Today, with permission from the current property owners, I'm entering Blackwood State Hospital for the first time. It's been sealed to the public for over 15 years, and what awaits inside has been untouched by human presence for longer than I care to calculate. The smell hits you first, decades of decay mixed with something else, something medical. The main lobby still bears remnants of its former grandeur. A marble reception desk cracked down the middle, murals on the walls now obscured by water damage and peeling paint. But it's the silence that's most unsettling. In a building designed to house hundreds of people, the absolute quiet feels wrong, oppressive, even. These hallways once echoed with the voices of patients and staff. Now they stretch endlessly into darkness, lined with rooms whose doors hang open like mouths frozen in perpetual screams. This was a typical patient room. The bed frame remains rusted and twisted. Personal belongings left behind, a hairbrush, a book of poetry, letters that were never sent. Each room tells the story of a life that ended here, often in confusion and loneliness. The third floor is where the women's ward was located. This is where the fire happened in 1954. Even now, you can see scorch marks on the walls, and the acrid smell of smoke seems to linger in the air. And this is room 237, the shock therapy room. The equipment is long gone, but the chair remains bolted to the floor. Standing here, I can't shake the feeling that I'm being watched. The temperature has dropped noticeably, and there's a sound barely audible, like someone crying in the distance. Now, I want to address something important. As compelling as these stories are, we have to consider the scientific explanations. The human brain is remarkably adept at finding patterns where none exist, especially in environments that trigger our primal fears. Dr. Sarah Whitman, what people experience in places like this can often be explained by infrasound sound waves below the range of human hearing that can cause feelings of unease, paranoia, and even visual hallucinations. Old buildings are particularly susceptible to creating these conditions through settling foundations, wind patterns, and structural vibrations. Dr. Whitman makes valid points. The power of suggestion is real, and our expectations can absolutely influence our perceptions. But what about experiences that multiple people report independently? What about physical evidence that can't be easily dismissed? During my time here, I've captured some unusual phenomena. Temperature fluctuations of up to 20 degrees with no apparent source. Electromagnetic readings that spike in specific locations. And sounds recorded on equipment that seem to have no rational explanation. Audio playback of unexplained sounds. This was recorded in room 237 at 2:47 a.m. Listen carefully. I've had these recordings analyzed by audio experts. They confirm the sounds are present, but their origin remains unexplained. So what is the truth about Blackwood State Hospital? Are the spirits of former patients truly trapped within these walls, unable to find peace? Or are we simply projecting our own fears and guilt onto a place that represents one of the darker chapters in our treatment of mental illness? Perhaps the answer isn't as important as the questions this place forces us to confront. The patients who lived and died here were real people with real stories, hopes, and fears. In our fascination with the paranormal, we mustn't forget their humanity. Whether you believe in ghosts or not, Blackwood State Hospital serves as a reminder of how far we have come in understanding mental health and how far we still have to go. The voices people claim to hear in these halls might not be supernatural at all. They might simply be the echoes of suffering that demands to be remembered. What do you think? Have you ever experienced something that challenged your understanding of reality? Share your stories in the comments below, and remember, the most important hauntings are often the ones that happen in broad daylight, in the way we treat each other, and the lessons we choose to learn from our past. If you found this exploration as thought-provoking as I did, please subscribe for more investigations into the unknown. And remember, the real mystery isn't whether ghosts exist, but why we need them to help us process the uncomfortable truths about our history.